Ravens Nation, happy Wednesday. It is July 17th. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside Sarah Ellison. We have a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream for you on deck, which is presented by Man to Sleep. How are you?
I'm doing well. What about yourself here? Hot up there in New York?
It is. Mid-painting project. Excited about a lot of opportunities that are coming up for us. We're obviously kind of just trudging forward to training camp. All the vets will be there as of the 20th, which is this Saturday. So hard to believe you and I are on the cusp of our third season together. I was just thinking about that earlier. Literally, we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary as a partnership, as a show, which is crazy.
Is that it? 2 years?
Yeah. 2 years, and then season number 3 for us coming up. So,
Yeah.
and I think only our first full season in video. Or second full season in video. I have to check the dates on that. But
Yeah.
we've got a lot coming up for you guys today, including some key updates that we have on Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey, just based on various pieces of information that we've received related to injury designations or a lack thereof in both of their cases. Hint, hint. Lamar Jackson rankings. Dan Orlovsky had raised his voice a little bit on Chris Russo, Mad Dog, who left Lamar outside of where, Sarah, specifically?
Was it 7. He was at number 7.
Okay, 7. Yeah. And then it's
the people he's got ahead. Yeah.
Right. Shocker. And then just because at the end of yesterday's live stream, the Brandon Aiyuk trade request went down, we wanted to kind of dive more into that. A few different pieces of commentary on the San Francisco 49ers wide receiver discussion and much more coming up, right?
Yep, absolutely. So it's interesting because, Bobby, yesterday we kind of talked a little bit about the news on the injury front, in that the injured players report early with quarterbacks and with rookies. And so we had gotten news that, obviously, when we knew this was coming, Keaton Mitchell was put on the PUP. We knew that, we learned that TJ Tampa was also going on PUP. That was a little bit more of a surprise. We don't know what's going on there. We'll find out. And then Adisa Isaac, pass rusher, 3rd rounder, was put on the non-football injury list. The speculation is that it might be that he didn't pass the conditioning test, because that's usually what happens if you're put on NFI around this time of year. Now, what we didn't know is who else had shown up. So because they didn't make any of these lists. Okay, so yesterday on Final Drive, Garrett Downing, one of my favorites, former coworker, Garrett Downing did his usual video, and he had showed that, look at this, who else showed up? But they did, the social media team over there. Let me replay this here. Social media team didn't blast it, probably because they are the injured guys, and you don't know where they're going to end up and what lists and all that kind of stuff. But one Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton, 2 massive pieces in the Ravens defensive backfield. So in Final Drive, they just kind of very quickly showed that they had reported. So listen, anything can change at any time. Absolutely. But the fact that neither of these guys were put on an injury list yet, I think has some optimism here. And here's Garrett talking about these guys' injury situation and what's going on right now.
For most of the offseason, with what head coach John Harbaugh described as nagging things, and then Kyle Hamilton had elbow surgery this spring that sidelined him in mandatory minicamp. Marlon's status is one to watch early in camp. As you know, he dealt with the foot, the calf injuries last year, really limited what he could do during the season. Marlon and the Ravens understandably were cautious with the offseason practices this spring, but Harbaugh said he should be good to go for training camp. Now camp is here for him, and this week is a chance for him to test out where he is and make sure that he's good to go this summer. And then with Hamilton, the elbow surgery was considered a fairly minor procedure and something with a recovery timetable of just 2 to 3 weeks.
All right, so there we go. I just think when I saw a day later that he reported that they had showed up, and obviously should have known that, right? Because anybody that had off-season injuries has to show up at that point. But like I said, things could always change. They could always doesn't mean that both Marlon and Hamilton are going to practice day 1. But the fact that the Ravens didn't even need to flirt yet about putting them on a PUP, and you can come off a PUP at any time, the fact they didn't even have to flirt with that tells me that these guys are coming into camp feeling like, okay, we're feeling pretty good. Yeah, we'll test it this week, but feels like they should be ready to go that first week.
So no injury designation. Certainly plenty of concern over the last couple months in terms of what nagging things means when referring to Marlon Humphrey. And Kadri Ismail, who knows a thing or two about injury prevention and training and just injuries in general, being that he's dedicated his entire post-career to those areas. He was among some of those concerns when we had him on back in June, Sarah, related to the way in which John Harbaugh referred to Marlon's setbacks as nagging things. And we talked about it here on the Vault then.
I'm concerned.
Why? What is going on with him?
So anytime you hear the word nagging,
you like that shirt, don't you?
Well, we both have on the same shirt so from that weird. Day. You got on the gray one, and I've got on the red one. That's hilarious.
I wasn't even looking at me. I'm like, the red popped out immediately.
The red pops faster.
We're wearing the same dang thing.
Yeah, we got. Yeah, the crew neck T-shirts are a go-to for sure.
That's
but
amazing.
Anyway, go ahead.
Back
I noticed
to Q.
that too.
We digress.
And you talk about, well, technically it was kind of calf and almost Achilles-esque soleus muscle related last year, when he kind of got, injured and all that. And, it's been like kind of like coming out of it type of thing. I mean, that DB room is deep and good and young and hungry and getting coached up big time. And they ain't flinching. Like, that might be the strongest group on the field, including the quarterbacks. Like, top to bottom.
So you think that, like, if he doesn't have a successful...
I'm not Eric DeCosta. I'm not a general manager. I don't know what to tell you on that. All I know is Eric got options.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's coming off, for his standards, right? Marlon's coming off a year in which, 1, availability wasn't a calling card of his, and 2, consistency. He'd be the first to tell you it was underwhelming last year.
You got some young, hungry, fast, physical dudes.
Kadri Ismail from back in June.
That was when there's the thumbs up. I figured out what that was, by the way. Yeah, that was back around June 13, 14 during minicamp, because remember, Marlon didn't play in OTAs. Harbaugh said he could probably play in minicamp, and then he did. But then the second day and third day, they didn't have him practice. And so obviously Kadri here being like, the fact that like you can't totally get going again, like those nagging calf, like those nagging muscle injuries in your legs, you got to be careful about. So yeah, that's why I think I predict that early Marlon will practice. It's not, to me, it's less about the first day we see him. It's, can he stay on the field? Because we saw him for a minute and then he disappeared again. So it's, can he stay on?
Plenty of reasons for optimism, I guess, is the main takeaway from.
Yeah, there's not. I think what my takeaway is neither Marlon nor Hamilton are serious, and so we're months away from kickoff. I think it's 50 days, maybe 49 at this point.
Today,
it's 50 days from when the Ravens kick off against the Chiefs. 50 days when you've got like a nagging thing. If you're careful about it, you'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right though. 50-5-0. Get the countdown started.
5-0. I'm here for it.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get into the rankings discussion, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Manta Sleep. You know what we're rocking these days? The Ellison and Trossett family. We rock these Manta Sleep masks. And it's the Manta Sleep Mask Pro that you're going to see on the screen here in a second. And it gives you a number of things. True 100% blackout for deeper sleep. You've got C-shaped eye cups for unbeatable side sleep comfort. 0 pressures applied to your eyelids or your lashes. And the advanced materials enhance ventilation and unmatched breathability. I got mine literally right here with me. I know yours is probably taken by one of your kids around the house. I always like to show what it looks like. There's not a night that I go to bed without this sucker. And the beauty of it, for those of you who follow the channel religiously, if you use our code VAULT10, that's VAULT10 at checkout. If you find something you like, you'll get 10% off your next purchase. All that information, including the website link, is included in the show notes below. So
Bobby, I still can't get over that we were both wearing the exact same outfit.
Yeah.
Clip. I wonder if we're like on a similar clothing rotation. You know what I mean?
well, I'll be able
Like-
to tell you real quick why there's a
Oh,
dang
you're up
good
in New
chance.
York though. You've packed only a few shirts, I'm sure.
That's
Yeah.
it. It's that, but I also, this is a brand called Built,
Yeah.
BYLT, and I realized at the start of the summer that I didn't have like shirts that were good for a Baltimore summer. Like I needed non-cotton. I needed sort of like
Yeah.
meshy type of speaking of breathability, like that's what I feel like these give you. I also like the fit of them. I literally bought like 5. Now, not of the same color, so
No,
that's what's kind of crazy about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm the same
So-
way. I've got a rotation of just like t-shirts that you can use in the summertime for
the
sure.
red popped immediately, and then you're like, "Well, wait a second now.
You too, bro.
Wait a second now." So,
All right, sorry. On to quarterback ranking. So we covered yesterday, right? The executives from around the league that voted on the rankings of quarterbacks. Then Jeremy Fowler takes their votes and makes a top 10 list. Patrick Mahomes got, I think, all except one, all first top spot rankings. I believe Josh Allen got the other one that got a 1. Anyway, Jeremy Fowler explained that 2, 3, and 4 were like crazy close. So you got Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. And he said it could have swayed easily with one vote, for the other ones to kind of move. And then he said there was a big drop off after those top 4. Okay. So just like us yesterday, the rest of the NFL sports media world reacted to this list from anonymous NFL executives. And so Mad Dog, what's his real name? Russo?
Chris Russo.
Chris Russo. He's like, no, forget that. And he puts together his own top 10. Okay. He keeps Mahomes and Burrow 1 and 2. Then he puts in your guy, Aaron Rodgers. Then he puts in Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, and finally at number 7, Lamar Jackson. So, Bobby, they bring in Dan Orlovsky.
Yeah.
And Dan, did I pull in that video yet?
Dan just goes off on him, right?
Dan goes off on him, and here we go.
Mad Dog, I love you. You're out of your freaking mind.
On who?
If you are coming off of last season and you're putting Lamar behind Jalen Hurts.
Oh, come on.
You're out of your mind.
Have
Dude
you
won
seen
the MVP.
Have you seen Lamar play in a playoff game? He stinks. He's done nothing in the postseason. Have you seen
good,
Hurts?
sir.
Hurts would have been a Super Bowl MVP if he scored 35 points against the Chiefs. Lamar couldn't score 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs.
And if Zay Flowers, as much as I am a fan of the young man, doesn't fumble on the 1-yard line, Baltimore has a chance to win that game.
And how did Lamar play? How did Lamar play in the game? How many interceptions he throw? How did Lamar play in the game?
They did not win that. Mad Dog, they did not lose that game last year because of Lamar. They lost that game last year because they ran the ball 6 times. Bug, why did Baltimore lose that game last year?
Oh, come on.
Maybe the worst game plan I've ever seen by offensive coordinator Todd Monken. I agree with Dan on that. But Dan, you also have to admit Dan, that even when they put it on Lamar, Lamar didn't perform. Now, I think Lamar should be higher on the list, but if we're just talking about that particular game, Mad Dog has a point about Lamar in the postseason. What have you done for me lately? As talented as he is,
But
doesn't
look,
have
if he
anything to
does,
show for it.
if Zay doesn't fumble that ball on the 1 yard line, the narrative of that game might be very different, let alone the result. I'm not saying Lamar lit it up, but you can't come off of last season. And Mad Dog, last season, coming off of 2023, you have Rodgers at 3.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a stretch, even though he's an all-timer type of thing. And Jalen had 20 turnovers. He was the worst quarterback against the blitz. We've seen one great season from Jalen and one not great season from Jalen. To put him over Lamar, that has never had a bad season, it feels like, in the NFL, I can't do that.
Dan was awesome with us in February, and he was awesome there. Mad Dog, I love you, but you're out of your freaking mind, he says. By the way, Lamar only had 1 interception, if we're being thorough, in the AFC title game. So don't tally another one when you don't have to. But yeah, he was far from what we've grown accustomed to seeing. We've talked about that time and time again. But Dan hit the nail on the head with what it could have been, game planning wise. And if it weren't for a rookie moment and a huge moment, none of this would be discussed and dissected the way that it has for the last 5 months.
That was funny when he was like, he appeals to Booger, and he's like, Boog, why did the Ravens lose that game? He goes, oh, that was the worst offensive play game plan that I've ever seen. Like, just period.
Oh, yeah.
Just period.
Last
and so I do
time.
think it's fair to note that, like, I don't think that Lamar put the team on his back the way I felt like he did in the second half of the Houston game. And that's just like the stuff that I think gets lost is, like, they act like he's never had a good playoff game when, first of all, I thought he played well in that 14-2 year against the Titans. He threw it around like it was nothing, and the Ravens defense just couldn't stop King Henry. And then I thought, obviously, he played well against the Titans again and led him to a victory. And
that
then
was
it was
the better of the two, though. I don't know if I'd call that first one well.
I don't think he played. Oh, I guess I got to go back and put it all together. But it's kind of like in this last game. I mean, Lamar. I remember Lamar flinging it around and having a lot of completions in that first game. In that first Titans game.
When it was like
when they lost
over.
to him.
When it felt like it was completely out of reach.
Yeah. No, but it's kind of like I put that one in the category of the one that we just put the AFC Championship game, where it's like I don't feel like Lamar put the team on his back, but I don't think he was the reason why they lost it. Like, it was like the defense could not stop Derrick Henry. Like, it just couldn't. It could not be done. But Lamar did play well in that second Titans game. And then I feel like what's that?
On the road at Tennessee.
Right.
Yep.
And then he didn't even want his teammates to go and shake hands. Like, he's like, remember that after the game? He's like, get over here. Let's all get in the locker room. Like, he didn't even want.
That was the logo. Marcus Peters.
Yes.
There was jawing prior to the game between Harbaugh and Malcolm Butler. Right. I mean, there was a lot there.
Yeah. And then I honestly do think that I remember the reports coming out, or the players talking about it. Lamar went into the locker room at halftime against Houston, just back in January, and you could see the look in his eye when he was going in the locker room. He had words, and then he came out and he led the team to victory. So listen, unless you win the Super Bowl, your last memory of every team is going to be that you lost. Yep. And so that's certainly the narrative. And listen, I'm not defending his playoff record. Lamar's 2-4. Jalen Hurts is 2-2. Which was what Mad Dog was trying to argue. He was like, how many wins does Jalen have? Well, the same as Lamar, Yeah. So, but listen, this is going to be forever until he wins the Super Bowl. This is going to be the next narrative until he knocks it down. And I think it's a fair narrative, but I don't think it makes him number 7 on the quarterbacks list. That's crazy to me.
Just to be thorough on the numbers, I got box scores in front of me. Lamar was 31 for 59 for 365 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 4 times and had a quarterback rating of 63.2 in that January 2020 AFC divisional round. On top of that, again, that was a loss to Tennessee as the number 1 seed. Lamar
that's a lot of crazy yards. So you're right. Like, at the end, they were flinging it around trying to catch up.
Absolutely. I
a lot of
remember it
yards.
really, really
Yeah.
well. And 20 carries for 143 yards to boot to on top of that on the ground. Now, to your point from earlier on, they were never able to establish any sort of ground defense up against Derrick Henry. He had 30 carries for 195 yards. He averaged 6.5 per carry and had a long of 66. That's absurd.
It's absurd.
That is absurd.
But
I
dude,
also
508 total yards in a playoff game. Now
Yeah.
you said how many interceptions? He had 3?
So he had 3 turnovers. He had 2
Oh.
interceptions and a fumble lost.
Oh, I wonder if that's one of those fumbles. Is it like on him? Is it one of those where he's trying to hand it off? I can't remember.
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
I'm sure live chat people have insane memory.
Yeah.
Some people are like that with games that'll never be able to get over, right? That's one of those games that
Right.
along with the AFC title is one that that will forever live in infamy. But and then other people are referencing some of the drops that they remember from that game.
There were a ton of drops in that,
I
despite
don't
all the
remember
yards
the
he threw.
number. Yeah, I don't remember the number.
I
of the box
remember
score.
people putting up the video of like drop. Like I want to say there was like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy.
Marquise Brown led all receiving that day, 7 receptions for 126 yards. Willie Snead was second, 6 for 56. It's crazy to look back at the pass catchers. Hayden Hurst, Seth Roberts, Miles Boykin, Mark Ingram, Nick Boyle, Chris Moore, Mark Andrews. That's wild. Remember, Mark was sort of a non-factor in that game, which is why one of the reasons why he's met with some of the similar criticisms that Lamar has received in recent years when it comes to postseason play.
You know what I think it is with Lamar in the playoffs, because we're talking about like this 500-yard game and being like, you know, but it's used against him, right?
Yeah.
And he has like I honestly do think that Lamar has to play in the playoffs mistake-free when it comes to turnovers. Because as long as he has a turnover, he's giving ammunition to people saying it was Lamar's fault.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I definitely think he has played well in the playoffs. Again, Houston, I thought he played very well, especially in that second half. But it's gonna. And here's the problem, though: if it becomes something like the Titans in 2020 or the Chiefs in 2024, and the defense gives up quick points, which is what was happening.
Yeah.
Then you're forcing Lamar to have to take risks because you're playing from behind. And when you take risks, that's where the interceptions come from.
Yep.
So you can't let there be this 2 drives and they have 14 points, which is what happened against the Chiefs. You can't have this where Derrick Henry or somebody like that is just running over your defense, because then that puts you in like a play from behind, take greater risks, and they have
never been consistently good at doing that.
They've done it. Like I think of like the Indianapolis game, they've done it. But like I don't know anybody that's consistently coming from behind and playing well. John Elway did back in the day. I remember that happening a lot in the fourth quarter.
They've done it.
They've done it.
Boy, like their formula, when you look at the 2019 and 2023 seasons, man, strikingly similar in the sense that we're gonna punch you in the mouth from the jump. We're gonna dictate the entire pace of this game, time of possession, right, pace, everything, and we're gonna give you 0 answers, and we're gonna run you right out of the gym.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Some people are asking, well, wait a second, back in that 2020 game, you know, the divisional round loss to Tennessee as the number 1 seed, he accounted for over 500 yards. How is that not a good game? Well, he had 3 turnovers and only put up 12 points. So we're just trying to have a balanced conversation here. Of course, he lit it up yards wise, but unfortunately that didn't convert for him in the win-loss category and also from a overall points production.
So in the playoffs, I want to see 2 things. I already mentioned no turnovers, but this team cannot panic. Like when you do get behind, especially early in the game, stay yourself and stay the course. Do not panic. Like you don't need to throw your identity out the window early. And I felt like the games we're talking about, they were, you know, I can't remember how early the Ravens had to start throwing tons with Lamar. But I just feel like I just feel like there's so much panic.
Yeah.
And you cannot panic in these situations. It's always the calmest person. If you stay calm, they're going to make mistakes themselves also. It's going to happen. So no turnovers, no panic.
I will never forget that divisional round, the first time around, the 14-2 season, where they go into that game having taken a couple weeks off. And when you talk about panic, the panic could be felt from what was happening on the sideline and literally leaked its way and became contagious to 60,000 plus at the bank. It was one of the weirdest, deflating type of nights that I've ever been around in sports.
Yeah.
It was a collective panic.
Yeah.
And the energy was completely sucked out of the stadium.
Yeah.
And from then on, to your point, they abandoned who they were. And literally in the first quarter, I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be a long night. I'm watching from the press box view at that time. And I'm thinking, this is not the team that I've watched the last 4 months. And from then on, they were never, ever able to dictate the way in which that game was played.
Right.
Not for 1 second in that game.
Right.
Did they have control?
And that's so true from the beginning. And Bobby, there is a fine line between urgency and panic, right? What I saw in the second half of Houston was like we're ticked off that they're even in this game, right? Like we're ticked off, and you could see it, and you started playing, like it motivated you to play better. Panic is different in that you change who you are. Like you forget who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I just want to see the Ravens get punched in the face, get punched in the mouth, and not flinch. Absorb it, and don't forget who you are.
We've seen it twice within 5 years as the top overall seed in the AFC. Different games, different personnel, different reasons. One was more egregious than the other, but we've seen it twice when they were one win away from, in I guess the divisional round, they were 2 wins away from the Super Bowl, 1 win away from the Super Bowl this past year. But.
Okay, so Bobby, Mad Dog has moved the conversation forward. Mad Dog has Aaron Rodgers at number 3, and there's another video floating around because it's quarterback ranking week leading into training camp. Mike Greeny, who's clearly biased, okay, he has tiers. He has a pyramid here. This is bananas.
Yeah.
He's got Aaron Rodgers alone in his own tier. Second tier with Mahomes and Allen, and then a third tier with Love, Stroud, and Jackson. Yeah. We can play the clip, but as a guy who's not afraid to say you like Aaron Rodgers, I had to bring this in to get your take. So let's play the video, and then I want to hear just Mad Dog putting it Aaron Rodgers at number 3. Greeny's got him in a tier of his own, and I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, spoiler alert, I think this is just as ludicrous as you do. But let's play it. We'll talk about it on the end. All
right, good to know.
With the lowest level of the pyramid, which again constitutes the 4th, 5th, and 6th best quarterbacks in the NFL. They are Lamar Jackson, C.J. Stroud, and Jordan Love. That's the lowest layer. That's the foundation layer of the pyramid. We move up 1 slot on the pyramid here. We got Patrick Mahomes, and we got Josh Allen. Now, you may say to yourself, how in the world is it that Patrick Mahomes is not number 1? Well, the reason is we have to give credit to the man who built the pyramid. I'm not talking about King Tut. I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers. I'm talking about the man who the last time he was questioned in the way he has been questioned at this point, the last time his team gave up on him, the last time the team went out there and made moves that made him feel as though he wasn't wanted anymore, the last time the league gave up on him, the last time idiots on this show like me did essays suggesting that his best days were behind him, he went out and won not 1, but 2 back-to-back MVP awards. And you know what? That team wasn't as good as the team he's on this year. So this has been delayed by 1 season. But upon his return from the pyramid, Aaron Rodgers belongs on top of the pyramid. He is going to have the best season. Mark my words. He is going to have the best season of any quarterback in the NFL this year and put the top brick, is it a brick? What are they made of? Stone? The top stone on the pyramid when it matters the most.
What's so ironic about this is I'm pretty sure there was a rumor out there that Aaron missed minicamp because he was in Egypt, and having traveled in Cairo during my semester abroad.
Yeah.
That's, of course, home to the Great Pyramids of
Sure.
Giza,
Sure.
which I visited. It was one of the most spectacular sites of my entire existence. And so it's kind of hilarious that he now has Greeny's QB pyramid, and Aaron just got back from the home of the pyramids.
Right.
But let's get into what's more important, and that is just the ridiculousness of what we're looking at right here on a screen that does not have Joe Burrow. It has Lamar in the third tier, along with Stroud and Love, and it's got Mahomes in the second tier.
It's so funny. Listen, I will say this though, okay? You put Greeny in that Jets locker room before their week 1 game, okay? That guy, that's exactly what they need to hear. That's exactly what they need to believe. Greeny is unabashedly a Jets fan. So you know what? He's going to bat for his team. He's going to bat. And like, if he tried to pretend he was objective and put this out, then I would be angry. But because he's like transparent about that, then it makes me just smile. You know what I mean? Just put that guy in the Jets locker room. You go in there and you tell Aaron Rodgers he's about to have the best season of anybody in 2024, maybe of his life. And it's like, it's his time, right? It's time. So here's my question to you on a serious note. Let's back up here. Where do you put Aaron Rodgers in your quarterback rankings?
Outside the top 5. Squarely in the top 10. Probably in that 6 or 7 range. But for reasons that Orlovsky pushed back on, how can, coming off of last year, given that we haven't even seen in his new organization more than a few snaps, and being that he is the oldest starting quarterback in the league by a measurable margin, I just don't see how that confidence can translate, even though the last time we saw him he was playing at an MVP caliber level in Green Bay. But that's been a whole minute ago. So he's outside my top 5. I absolutely think in several months from now, we could be referring to him as still one of the top quarterbacks in the entire league. But until I see it, and until he shows that he can come back from this torn Achilles, and until the Jets offensive line shows that they can actually protect him consistently. We know their defense is dang good. We know he has playmakers, but can he consistently be protected by that offensive line? Because had it not happened on play 3 or play 4 last year, I think it was inevitable. I don't know about a torn Achilles, but it was inevitable that guy was not going to be protected last year.
Yeah. So you probably think it's fair where the executives have him around number 8. Like you're cool with that. Yeah. I will say this, Aaron Rodgers, if he plays if he plays all 17 games, he's like a shoo-in for comeback player of the year. Like that award was made for this. Like he's got he's like perfectly set up for that.
Absolutely.
So as long as he stays healthy, I'm sure he will at bare minimum be comeback player of the year.
And by the way, you mentioned my affinity for him a couple times.
Yeah.
Let me be on record for saying most of that is his off-field life.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying I don't think he's close to his family. I think there's a lot of smoke there. There's a lot of drama there. I'm talking about somebody as a human being who speaks with conviction and speaks with the belief of what he is invested in and what he believes in. I can get behind somebody like that.
You like that he's unafraid?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I like his fearlessness. I think he's a polarizing figure. I think that he's single. He's not been able to really maintain relationships in his life. I think there's an area of criticism there, but I'm just talking about solely based on, I guess you put it right. His fearlessness.
What's funny, Bobby, is I used to watch The Bachelor quite a bit. Sometimes some of my friends will bring me back into it, depending on the season. Yeah. But I watched the year that his brother was on, and it's often a red flag to me when you can't get along with your family. Like to me, like you have to fight for that. You have to fight. Now, if you've got like abusive parents or something like that, that's a different scenario, but that did not seem to be the case. So for me, that was always like I appreciate that he's unafraid, but sometimes you just got to like be able to have, relationships. So
I completely agree with you. That's why I mentioned those things like that for
Yeah.
me, especially in the dating game. Like that's a huge, huge check box that I'm looking to have checked like early on. Do you have relationships with your family?
Yeah.
Where are they on your priority list? And for him, again, that to me is outside the conversation of when I talk about him and the light that I do. It's solely based on like his demeanor, his fearlessness,
Gotcha.
how well studied he is, how well versed he is outside of things like football. So
Comes at a cost for sure.
yeah, definitely.
All right, should we move on to this? This news came out literally as we were wrapping up yesterday. It was that Brandon Aiyuk, wide receiver, San Francisco 49ers, officially requested a trade, which to me, when we were talking, I was like, oh, I guess it's official, but it sure seems like he's been basically pushing for that with all of his different social media posts and things like that. So Adam Schefter explains after he breaks his own news. I think Garoppolo was first though, but Adam says in the past the 49ers
Rap sheet, you mean?
No, it was Garoppolo had it. At least we announced it.
Garofolo.
Yeah, Garofolo.
I know you like Jimmy G, but
yeah, no. Yeah, Garofolo. Do I like Jimmy G?
But no, I'm just
about that.
I'm just saying.
It's like that's the first time I learned that I like Jimmy G, but I get the name messed up. Yeah. Garofolo.
You've never once said anything about Jimmy G, matter of fact, just so we're being clear.
Right. Anyway, Adam basically is saying, as you said yesterday, Debo and Robbie Gould, their kicker, requested trades. They weren't traded. The 49ers eventually signed him. And then he wrote, the 49ers intend to keep Brandon Aiyuk, not trade him. Now, intentions are something, always different. But I thought this is very telling and why the 49ers want to keep him. So Nick Wagner wrote a piece. He's like the Jamison Hensley of the 49ers, right? These two paragraphs, he wrote a really long piece, but this is more than just like your typical talk of like, oh, I intend to keep him. And then 2 days later he's traded. So he says the 49ers have remained steadfast that they have no desire to trade Aiyuk. Tuesday's trade request did nothing to change their mind on that front either. Not only do the 49ers consider Aiyuk a foundational player, but they also have their sights set on trying to break through and win a Super Bowl this year. Trading Aiyuk in July of 2025 for 2025 draft picks that wouldn't be able to help them in that mission would make little sense. It's why the 49ers have refused to engage in trade discussions with teams reaching out about Aiyuk. Side note, I just saw a report yesterday that the Patriots recently reached out, and we know that the Steelers have been interested. I don't think that I don't think it's just a matter of we're not getting the price we want, which I'm sure that could be it. But I think all of this rings true. Like you can throw all these draft picks at us, but why would we flush this team, this offense down the toilet when Aiyuk's like a centerpiece, a foundational piece, and when we have a real chance, and they do, to win a Super Bowl? And obviously, I hope it's the Ravens, but they do have a real chance. So he says that's why they refuse to engage in trade discussions with teams reaching out about Aiyuk. Perhaps a team offering a difference-making player in exchange for Aiyuk would change the Niners' stance, but such trades are rare in the NFL and are even more unlikely at this time of year.
Yeah.
So, we can always do like which I saw yesterday on Ravens Twitter, like, hey, should the Ravens trade for him? Hey, would Aiyuk be great? Yeah, they should. But if I'm the 49ers, forget that. Like, think about this. Think about if Aiyuk was on the Ravens right now. That's actually quite a beautiful thought. But let's say he is.
Yeah.
And the Ravens have their money elsewhere and they need to buy like another year, right? Say like they need to buy another year because you got Deebo Samuel that maybe you could release him later, but you're trying to keep the squad together now when you just went to the Super Bowl and lost. And so all of us would be saying, don't do it, Eric. Don't do it, Eric. We want to go get a ring, right? There's There's no way that they should be doing that. But like, I just like the article said, if somebody said, okay, I'll trade, which I would not do this, Flowers for Aiyuk or your top receiver, then they're like, okay, well then that will still help us have a chance. But otherwise, no dice.
Remember when I gave you my on the fly prediction at the end of live stream yesterday, saying that San Francisco would end up sort of balking here?
Yes.
I started digging into it. I did a personal video on my personal channel afterwards.
Okay.
And I actually am not feeling great about my prediction. And I'll show you why. David Lombardi covers and some of this is what you've already discussed, but David Lombardi covers the 49ers, and he talked about a couple of different things here, including one of the problems for Brandon in 2024. It is a contract year. They picked up his 5th-year option. Any holdout action is very risky. It's going to cost him reps. But then they also brought in Ricky Pearsall in the draft, who a lot of teams were high on. So there is other talent in that wide receiver room. But outside of that, you've got vets reporting to training camp literally this upcoming weekend.
Yeah.
So somewhat of a soft deadline is what David refers to that as for Brandon. He's incentivized to use all tools at his disposal to encourage movement, but the 49ers aren't obligated or even incentivized to respond, which is what you were getting at here, since he's under contract. The only case in which the 49ers might be incentivized to up their offer slightly is if they badly want to avoid a training camp holdout. There is some value in that, but it sounds like the sides are still significantly far apart, and San Francisco has, and this was sort of the key here, has too much leverage with Brandon already under contract to offer more than a small sweetener. So, yeah, I'm not feeling great about my
also
prediction.
Think about Bobby, like this is his 5th year, right? They still technically could franchise tag him for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Like they have the leverage for 3 years, and that's why you see him so publicly doing this.
Oh, yeah.
This is another reason why, Bobby, I wanted to cover it on our show. Like partially it's because Ravens fans really want him in Baltimore. But the other thing is when the Ravens have negotiations that are public, there's like a feeling because you're not watching other teams doing it. Like when Lamar asked for his trade, like there's like this feeling that it's like, oh, they hate each other and it's gotten personal and this and that. And it's like, no, this is why I want to cover it with other teams. I don't think Brandon Aiyuk hates the 49ers. I read that whole article. He texted them and told them they did a good job by getting Pearsall. You just mentioned Pearsall. Yeah. He texted them and said, hey, great pick. That's a great compliment to us, right? He's not feeling threatened. Like, I don't think that he wants to leave a team that he just played in the Super Bowl with and could do it again, right? This is purely strategy that players try to implement to get the pay that they deserve. And I don't demonize them for that. I don't demonize Aiyuk for publicly asking for a trade, for putting out those videos and all that, because he has no other leverage. Yeah. The only leverage a player has is to make it hard on your team media-wise and try to get fans to put pressure on your team too, because he has no other, like there's no way he's going to hold out. This is a Super Bowl bound team. It's right in the thick of the NFC. So like when it's happening to your team, you can get emotional about it and you start to think it's personal and the two sides hate each other. I could be calm last year with Lamar because I saw it with Ray and I saw it with Ed and I saw it with Terrell Suggs. Like, remember I don't know if you remember this, but Terrell Suggs, he started going to the NFLPA because he was trying to petition that he should be paid like a defensive end instead of an outside linebacker, because the outside linebackers shared like the money on the franchise tag with linebackers. And so like that was crazy too. Like I'd been through it so many times, and you watch Aiyuk, I like to highlight it to show you these are normal star strategies when they have no leverage otherwise.
Yeah.
You know,
and one more note along those lines too, just the monetary side of things from Jason at Over the Cap. So 5th-year option players are subject to fines for missing camp as well as preseason games, and the numbers that go along with each one of those categories, he thinks it's in the range of 40,000 per day in terms of camp, and then 785K, or at least in that neighborhood, for each preseason game.
That's true, but also from the article I just read, it said Aiyuk could have any training camp fines forgiven because he's still in his rookie contract. The Niners did that for Bosa when he re-signed last September. So he could, but then if they end up signing, then they'll just be like, okay, forget it. We're good.
Sure. Sure.
So, but to your point, it's like, if they don't eventually make a deal, then the 49ers may not forgive that, And again, that's leverage against him. But there is one prediction I would like to make about Aiyuk and the Ravens. But before I do that, I want to explain to you why I'm about to make this prediction. So I didn't have time to pull this, so I'm just going to have to bring my microphone over to this. This is Dan Orlovsky. He's basically being asked, like, if the 49ers trade him, does that ruin like their Super Bowl hopes? I'm bringing in less because of that topic and more how he describes Aiyuk as a player.
On top of the NFC? Oh, there's no question about it. Brandon they're one of the most essential offensive pieces that they have. He's much more than a wide receiver as well. You can make the case he's the best blocking wide receiver in the NFL, and the way that San Francisco runs the football and the way that they formation stuff and the way their offense in many ways is built in yards after the catch. If you don't have a guy that selflessly does that work outside of actually catching the football, then it's really difficult to operate. Also, I don't know if there's a more confident guy going over the middle of the field and taking shots potentially than Brandon Aiyuk at wide receiver. Maybe Justin Jefferson, but Brock Purdy has a tremendous amount of trust in him, and he is a very unique skill set when it comes to how San Francisco runs their offense. So,
okay, so I played that. Does that not sound like a Ravens wide receiver to you? When he talked about huge blocking wide receiver, hi Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry, by the way.
Yeah.
You talk about, he said he's a selfless guy, not a high volume passing. He's got excellent stats despite not being high volume, just like the Ravens again. Going across the middle of the field, Lamar throwing outside is underrated. He can throw outside, but he genuinely loves to throw across the middle. We're talking about, that sounds like a guy built for the Ravens offense 1000%, and like yards after catch, like all of it. So here's my prediction. I think someday the Ravens will get Aiyuk, but I think it'll be when he's 32.
Really going out on a limb there with that prediction historically, huh? History repeats itself. There you go.
You watch. It's always 5 years later. Like, it was like, look at Steve Smith. And then, the Ravens did get great years out of him in the end. But that's how the Ravens work. They'll get these stud wide receivers when they're like not in their prime anymore. So 32 years old, book it. You can bring a Baltimore Raven.
If you're a fan of history and you think it repeats itself, then you're on the Sarah train with that prediction coming true. The one other note that I'll mention too is his teammate, Jawan Jennings, also a wide receiver, posted a cryptic Instagram story around the time of when all of this was going down yesterday with the request itself. And it was just a black screen with these words on it. You got to be a different type of person to act like you doing everything by yourself, knowing dang well you not. So.
Wait, who said that? I'm sorry.
His teammate, Jawan Jennings, a fellow wide receiver.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, now wait a second though. The follow-up to that. Okay, there was a follow-up Instagram story that I'm just seeing now, and he came back after, of course, everybody ripped him, or was at least speculating whether or not he was referring to Brandon, and he denied it, that it was not about Brandon, but awfully suspicious timing.
Yeah.
To throw that out there.
Interesting.
So, anyway. Okay, what else we got before we close?
Some quick hits here.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like the Ravens are going to put out their minicamp Wired episode. They've been putting up some teasers, some funny ones. It's Flowers and Derrick Henry, who were wired. So
Nice.
that could be fun. I'm definitely going to tune into that, and we'll obviously highlight anything if there's anything cool that comes out of that. Those I know are heavily edited by the football side, so only certain things can get out. But based off of their teasers, I mean, Flowers talks nonstop. I mean, nonstop.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
He was talking about a nickname for Derrick Henry, and Derrick's more of a quiet guy. And he's like, we should call you Courtside, because he was, has courtside tickets. He's like, King Courtside, Courtside King, da-da-da. And Henry is just like, I don't even know what you're talking about, and walks away from Flowers. It's just like, clearly just doesn't want to talk. And Zay's like nonstop. But this was funny. Yesterday, the team put this up, a little video of Lamar showing up during minicamp to team meetings in the huge auditorium. And he shows up in his full game uniform.
Yeah, it is padded.
It is padded, but Cassie, who works on the social media team there, in her own tweet on her personal account said, okay, in all seriousness, it's because he was shooting for us. Remember all the videos that came out, and it was media day?
Oh, yeah.
So Lamar had a lot of shooting obligations. Yeah. And so I think he had to keep it on because he had those things going on. So anyway, should be fun to get inside look. And I'm just looking forward to listening to Flowers talk nonstop and be funny.
That makes a couple of us.
Yeah,
for sure. So I found this was funny. I thought not this deal, but the next slide, I'll give you context. So the Broncos and standout guard Quinn Miners, they agreed to terms on a really big contract. He's one of the highest paid guards in the NFL. Ian Rappaport tweeted this out. And yes, the belly is a big deal. It's a hot commodity in the Denver area within that fan base.
I wish you grabbed a photo of it when he showed, like he legit looks pregnant. Yeah. Like legitimately, that's how he looked 9 months straight.
But
he's
a beast.
He's a beast.
He's a beast, and he's been really successful here to begin his NFL career. Well, Matt Wise from Ravens Twitter kind of has PTSD because if you go back to the draft when Miners was brought in, Denver picked him at 98. 4 picks prior to that, the Ravens went with Ben Cleveland, and Matt goes on to say it's one of those draft decisions that will forever haunt me. So, look, Ben has not panned out yet. Perhaps some are viewing him as a breakout candidate at guard for this upcoming year. We'll see. But you can do this in so many different situations and scenarios over the years in every single draft that ever was in the league. But I just saw this and wanted to throw that in there, being that Cleveland's career just unfortunately has not come to be.
Yeah.
Yet is the key word.
What's funny is I remember it's Miners, right? That's how you pronounce it. I remember at the Senior Bowl him blowing up because he had such a great personality. And I remember liking him and being like, oh, I wonder if the Ravens would select him. But there was like, I can't remember what the knock was on him, but there was like a knock on him that it was like, okay, he might be fun personality, but he's not going to make it because of XYZ.
Yeah. And
here we are. But no, he's definitely a likable character.
For sure.
Yeah.
And one last?
Yeah. So Colin Cowherd did his top NFL coaches, and not surprising, just like most people have John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin in their top 5. John gets number 3 here. Andy Reid, number 1. Sean McVay, number 2. And then Harbaugh 3. And then he's got Sean Payton in there.
Got Payton in his top 5.
That's kind of crazy.
Did Payton used to work at Fox when he was?
Yeah, I remember he had somebody on. Oh, it was Nick Wright. He had Nick Wright on to react to his top 10. Yeah. And Nick's like, man, I'm just glad you're my friend, because if I ever do anything, I know you are loyal and I know you will have my back, which is what he's doing with Sean Payton. And they had a good laugh about that. I don't know why Jim Harbaugh, by the way, didn't qualify, but they have that there.
Yeah, maybe just for what have you done for me lately? And he's been in college for the last few years. But yeah, I'd have Shanahan in my top 5 and take Sean out.
Yeah,
that's
definitely
what mine would be. And again, Sean is a proven coach. We'll see what he does in Denver. But it's been nothing short of. Look, I think he took that job knowing that it would be several years in the making until they can scratch and claw and become relevant again.
Yeah.
Sean Payton in Denver.
Yeah.
And now that literally one of the worst trades in NFL history, given the contract that they gave Russell Wilson the year or two prior. Insane.
bad. It was bad.
Insane.
And then they treated him terribly,
Oh,
terribly.
terribly.
Like there were reports that it was because they wanted it, like, if they got Russell to do something, then like they could get out of the contract or something like that, or
Oh,
keep
listen,
money. So
Pittsburgh is playing. Aren't they paying the veteran minimum? And Denver's on the hook for some ridiculous number, which I thought was in the 30 or 40 million range for Russell this upcoming season. That's just terrible management. Terrible.
Luke K pointing out, and I've seen this also, people in Pittsburgh don't like Tomlin. It's the same thing like here in Baltimore, where like the fan base, I just think that you get tired of the same guy there forever, right? You start to know what their strengths and weaknesses are. But yeah, I've heard a lot of unrest because they're like, oh great, so we've never had a losing season, but when's the last time we've been to a Super Bowl? That's kind of the feeling. And people say the similar thing to John, that it's like your Super Bowl was how long ago now? Almost, are we 8 years away now? 9, something like that. And so it's like, what have you done lately? And you've got the superstar and quarterback, and you haven't done it yet. So both guys get tons of national love, but fan bases sometimes not on the same page.
Two of the most stable. Sometimes stability can be boring.
Yeah.
For fan bases. But would you rather have an up and down cyclical type of thing, or always be in it?
Yep.
And it seems like those two organizations are exhibit A for always going to be in it. So want to be sure to shout out and thank a couple of our returning patrons who support us through Patreon, and we really appreciate them both. Major Offense and Kelsey Conway's brother, Devin Conway, who, of course, we've had Kelsey on a couple times over the last year or so for her Bengals perspective, which is much appreciated. So thanks to Major and Devin for all the support. And if you guys are interested in doing the same, you can sign up for a monthly shout out like Devin and Major have for just $4.99. And that goes directly towards the efforts that we're doing here on a daily basis to give you Ravens content in live formatting. So what else? Anything else to tease? I think we're just kind of trudging along here. Vets report on Saturday, and then of course things will take off from there. But other than that, in a big way for sure. A special thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this episode. If you're interested in checking out the Manta Sleep masks that they have, you can visit the show notes below to learn more. And also there's a little incentive there for you too if you use our discount code. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for daily Ravens content if you don't already do so. Check us out in the audio-only space while you're at it. I saw Alejandra made Alejandra's debut. I guess she's a daily audio listener of ours. Never made it live, so glad she was able to make it earlier on in the.
There is something about live. I just being able to get live reaction. Always. Look into, oh, by the way, it's been 12 years since the Super Bowl. 12 years. Yeah. So.
Well, technically, February
2013.
But
but whatever. Okay. Anyway, there's just something about being live. There's something about being live. You can, have your comments in, and we're always checking in on those. Sometimes I get distracted by them, so I have to turn them off, but it's always fun to go live and get everybody's instant reactions for sure.
It's nice to know you guys are all there with us, rooting us on, and we appreciate all your support, of course. So we will catch up with you in 23 hours from right now with a Thursday Ravens lunch hour live stream. Glad you could join us. Get back to work, and Sarah and I will be back with you tomorrow.